Good evening and welcome back. This North Dakota District 12 Candidate Forum is hosted by the Jamestown Area Chamber of Commerce. The Jamestown Area Chamber is a nonpartisan entity in the community that is hosting this event to help give our area residents easy access to candidates and information on the upcoming election and voting. Once again, I'm Emily Bivens, the Executive Director at the Jamestown Area Chamber, and I'm pleased to be here tonight as your moderator. If you have questions for the candidates, please submit them in the comment section of our live stream, or for our audience here today, please write your question on the provided index cards and submit them to the Chamber staff. We will try to cover as much as we can while still being respectful of everyone's time. The format for this evening's forum will be as follows. We'll be presenting the candidates running for the District 12 state senatorial race on November 5th, 2024. Each candidate will be allowed approximately 2 minutes for an opening statement. Following that, questions will be presented to each candidate, and we will allow approximately 2 minutes for responses. This is not a debate, therefore we will not entertain any rebuttals. At the end of the forum, each candidate will have another opportunity for a closing statement. Candidates, when you have 30 seconds left of your time to speak, you will get a signal to begin wrapping up your statement. You will see the signal again at the end of your allotted time. If you have not wrapped up your statement in the allotted time, I will cut your statement short and move on to the next candidate or question. At the end of our District 12 state senatorial forum, we will introduce the District 12 House candidates for their statements. All right, to start the evening, I would like to present the two candidates for North Dakota District 12 Senator electoral race to introduce themselves. And Cole Conley, we will start with you.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you to the Chamber for hosting this event. Just going to put a plug in for the All Vets Club. Normally, I would be over there bidding on auction items to raise money for the All Vets Club. So I stopped and made a donation on my way here. So if you can support them sometime, they're great. So I'm Cole Conley. I have had the privilege of serving as your senator here in District 12 for the last 4 years. I have lived in Jamestown 50 plus years, and in the area out by Spiritwood, I have a farm out there, and I've had businesses here in Jamestown. Done a lot of business, know a lot of the folks here in town, and Jamestown's just a good place to live, and I'm honored and privileged to be able to serve you guys.
Okay. Thank you, Cole. Our next candidate is Olivia Schlegel. Please introduce yourself, Olivia.
Hi, thank you all for being here. Thank you to the Chamber for hosting. I know most of us work full-time jobs, so we're really tired right now, but I really am grateful for the opportunity to be here. My name is Olivia Schlegel. I'm running to represent you all in the District 12 for the North Dakota State Senate. I come from a family of teachers and accountants and musicians, some of whom are watching via Teams, so thank you for your support. And my family instilled in me values of empathy, collaboration, and integrity. My friends and peers in Jamestown and other chapters of my life will tell you that I'm engaging, enthusiastic, and dedicated to making critical and meaningful change. I think the most important part about how I strive to do that is that I always try to empower other people to use their voice towards collective impact. I have a professional background in natural resources, so natural resource sciences and management. I've been a biologist for the federal government here in town. I've taught at 2 regional universities as an adjunct professor. And presently, I work remotely as a research coordinator for a multi-institution monitoring program. So I bring strong communication and analysis and assessment skills to any leadership role I have. I believe we need better balance in Bismarck, not just in terms of partisan numbers, but in how our leaders listen to lived experiences and expert opinion. I married my wonderful partner in life who's in the audience tonight about a year ago in a very sweaty and heartwarming celebration right here in Jamestown. And we were so excited to share Jamestown with my family, not just the buffalo and the brewery, but I drove them by track where I teach yoga and to whom I credit surviving my first North Dakota winter. And if you read my bio or know me, you know that I am very involved in our community in Kiwanis, United Way, Forestry Committee, and local organizing. At the end of the day, I know that most North Dakotans simply want a government that's fair and a leader who will bring results back here to our region. Thank you again to the Chamber for hosting and for all of you for participating this evening. I look forward to the discussion.
Well, thank you for those introductions. Our first question of the evening is, what would your 3 highest priorities be if you were elected to serve as Senator of District 12? And Cole, we will start with you for this question.
Okay, thank you. It was hard to pick 3 because there are a lot of issues. But one of them I picked was energy security. If you remember, February of 2021, we had a really severe cold snap. And down in Texas, it went all the way down there. And with all the business interruptions and the pipes freezing, it cost them $83 billion. So here in North Dakota right now, we have energy demand going up, while energy generation is staying pretty flat. So what we have is insufficient generation to meet peak demand. And it's going to be even worse by 2030. And large areas in North Dakota are in high risk condition even now. So that will be one of the hot topics talked about, I'm sure. Property tax will get talked about a lot in the next session. If Measure 4 fails, we still need to give some property tax relief because the citizens are demanding it. I believe it should be targeted to owner-occupied residents only. And the third thing, I would expand economic opportunities to grow and grow and attract business to Jamestown.
Okay. Thank you, Cole. Olivia, same question.
Thank you. My top 3 priorities would be to address the pressing needs around human services, childcare, and housing in our region, be a strong voice for Jamestown and our region in the state legislature, and improve communication with and participation from our community in the legislative process. I would be thrilled to join a well-coordinated Democratic MPL caucus this next session in the state Senate. These are folks who have already demonstrated they can make meaningful, empathetic, collaborative, bipartisan change around real issues facing everyday North Dakotan families, senior citizens, and young people. In that caucus and in the legislature at large, I think most of you in the room who know me know I would not be a quiet legislator. I believe that we need to advocate for resources and implementation of programs that are right-sized for our region. Yes, that means honoring the geographical and cultural nuances here, but also not limiting ourselves so that we are forgetting to dare to dream about what our community can be. In practical terms, I don't think the GOP gets to own the word bureaucracy. Everyone's really frustrated that there's lack of technical support for implementation of certain state programs, and that there's certain rules that don't feel fairly applied across all sectors. I've already been a persistent voice for Jamestown in our state party organizing, where I made sure that we listed and included voices of ranchers and farmers in our state party messaging. I'm disappointed at the lack of public forums hosted by our current District 12 delegation. I can go and find info about complicated issues, distill it down into manageable pieces, and empower my fellow neighbors to be included in that discussion. I've proved that in the Legacy Fund Roundtable I hosted, at which Mr. Conley attended and for which I was grateful. We need better balance in Bismarck, and I'm motivated to put my skills and the voices of our community to practical solutions in places of power. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is in regards to Measure 4. The measure is a proposal to eliminate property taxes by amending the North Dakota Constitution and asking the state to provide replacement funding to political subdivisions as was received by the 2024 property taxes. If Measure 4 passes, what are some things you would consider to help align the state's budget to replace the funds to political subdivisions? And Olivia, I will go to you first for this one.
Thank you. I just want to name that Measure 4 is a really bad idea, and I'm voting no. This isn't fear mongering when we are talking about the facts and the realities that would ensue if this measure passes. Concerns and frustration around property taxes are valid. I too am frustrated. I also ask, who does Measure 4 help? Who does it not help? And who does it harm? It mostly helps out-of-state corporations. It does nothing to provide direct relief to renters and most small homeowners in our community, and it harms our community. EMS providers who answer the call no matter what, public educators who teach us all, and local services we all know need improvement will suffer if this measure passes. Regarding property tax reform, I'd be really honored to expand the primary residence tax credit that passed last session. I think we need to increase that number from 500 to something greater. And I would be interested in exploring how we could have it so it's automatically applied so folks don't have to apply. A balanced budget is a requirement in every biennium, and I've heard it said that budgets reflect values. I value people first, and I want people to be centered at these budget discussions. We've been spoon-fed this false choice between fiscal responsibility and public services for far too long. The state lawmakers need to provide oversight for those who are implementing the laws. So they need to have dialogue with the agencies who are providing the services and those who are receiving them. You all deserve a leader who's excited about bringing new revenue to our region and state. So of course, increasing, supporting, and protecting the dollars in our ag and energy industry, but broadening our economic support for the long term. What other pillars of our economy do you want to see grow for the next generation? We can't have these meaningful discussions if Measure 4 passes because the state legislature is going to be putting together pieces that have been broken because of this measure. I know we want a government that is fair and effective, and I'd be honored to be a part of that for the next 4 years.
Thank you, Olivia. Cole, same question.
Thank you. Well, if Measure 4 passes, that is going to make it very difficult to fund all the local services that we now have. So all options would have to be on the table. One of them would be to raise sales tax. Could do like South Dakota and institute a personal property tax. We could raise income taxes. We could also use legacy fund earnings. So those are some of the things that we would probably have to look at. And the perception is that there are large pools of state money. And while that's true, a third of it goes to special programs, and those monies are already designated for something and they have to be spent on those things. Another third, roughly third, are federal funds, and they have to be spent on federal projects. So that leaves the last third, which is general funds, which are discretionary, and that is $6.46 billion. In the 23-25 session, we gave income tax relief in the legislature of $358 million. Gave property tax relief of $53.5 million in the homestead tax credit and $103.3 million for primary residence credit of $500 per residence. If Measure 4 passes, schools would only receive state funds in the amount of about 75% of what they're getting now. So Measure 4 is a no for me.
Okay. Thank you, Cole. Our next question. Workforce and housing continue to be concerns for our area businesses and residents. If elected, what are some initiatives or projects you would like to see or work on to improve our workforce and housing needs? And Cole, we will start with you for this question.
Okay, I'll start with workforce. Presently, the state is funding career and tech schools. So the idea is to do homegrown workforce, or as part of it anyway. That should probably be expanded. We spent $68 million on career and tech last session. We need to keep working on economic development. Most people would like to see more of the legacy fund earnings spent in North Dakota. So instead of sending them to, they're going all over, all over the world. But we'd like them back here so we could invest in business and economic development to benefit North Dakotans. Economic development, of course, would lead to more and better paying jobs. As far as housing, the state added 140,000 residents in the last 10 years. We have not seen that influx here in Jamestown or Stutsman County. And I do agree there is some housing shortages here. So we need to encourage political subs, city, county, townships to work together to make ordinances that are more housing friendly, attract more people. We could start here in Jamestown. There's lots, I've been out knocking doors. There are lots of vacant lots, vacant houses. One of the big things, Jamestown's done a really good job on low income and elderly housing. And JSDC and the city are pursuing developers. They've got some projects in mind. If we could develop another condos, like the Center Point condos, a lot of people are wanting to downsize, which would free up some more homes for single family younger people.
Thank you, Cole. Olivia, same question.
Thank you. I am proudly Michigan grown talent that moved here to work without ever having visited Jamestown in September of 2018. By November of that year, I met Dave for the first time, and by March of the following year, we were dating. So my half-kidding answer to this creative program approach is that Department of Commerce and the Chamber of Commerce should host some sort of speed dating or matchmaking program. But in all seriousness, I do think a lot about this, and we talk so much about economic development, and it's starting to feel really hurtful to folks who live here and feel left behind by the lack of community development and quality of life in our community. We need a quality of life that will retain and attract people to live and work here. We have strong public schools we need to keep strong, and we have to have creative solutions around childcare access and affordability to get over this hurdle of new folks moving here and wanting to start and keep their families here. I was really excited to see last session that there was a suite of childcare bills introduced to solve all sides of the childcare equation, both the family side and the provider side. I'm really disappointed that Mr. Conley voted no on the provider side, especially because folks from right here in Jamestown wrote testimony in support of the Childcare Stabilization Fund. For both childcare and housing, I'd also like us to find a way to survey current employers here in Jamestown, maybe through JSTC or for the Chamber of Commerce, so we can have sort of a state of the union, if you will, on current needs. Finally, for housing, we're kind of in a bit of a pickle, as many folks have told me here in Jamestown. We're just big enough that it's hard to get developers to develop here, or excuse me, small enough that it's hard to get developers to develop here, but big enough that there's still a need. I agree with Mr. Conley that I would love to see the current vacant homes that are renovated and rented out for affordable housing. I'd also like to find collaboration between the local level, who controls zoning and some tax decisions, and the state government, who can provide key programs, and also the ones who allocate all those federal dollars. I've talked with folks who are really upset that our community has been passed over for some of those federal dollars. And as I've said before, and will say again, I will be a loud voice for Jamestown in our region in the Senate.
Thank you, Olivia. And now we have some questions that were submitted to our office. First question, do you have any proactive thoughts or solutions to address the new housing affordability problem? And Olivia, we will go to you to start this question.
Thank you. Yes, I have met with some folks at JSDC. I've talked with someone at Great Plains Housing Authority. I've talked with the county commissioner about this. and the new builds, right? So yeah, of course we want to develop our core, but we know from the numbers just developing and renovating old houses won't be enough in terms of the numbers. So for the new housing costs, there's some things out of our control, like the cost of building materials. But there's a lot of things in our control, like finding creative zoning solutions and making sure that we can set up state government resources and programs to incentivize new developers to build here. I think there's a lot we can do. There's already, I think it's called the STAR grant offered through the state, where young homeowners can get some help with their loans for buying a new home. And then finally, it was mentioned in the county commission forum that water, kind of rural water development and infrastructure is another key piece. And again, all of that rightfully so is largely controlled by 3 of our city council folks who are in the room. You bet your bottom dollar I've talked to them as well. And I think the state and the city can work together, especially when it comes to resources. I want to name that the Legacy Fund principal is being invested here in North Dakota. I went to the Retirement and Investment Office and I said, tell me more about your in-state investment program. I sat at a table next to a housing developer from Texas and I asked him, I don't know if this is a dumb question, but we can have these values that drive our investments. And can part of the legacy fund we invest be rooted in this core value of affordable, accessible housing? So investing in either development corporations or other entities that center affordable housing. These are the types of questions I ask because I'm not afraid to, and I'd be happy to work to continue these solutions because it's really an unmet need we have here.
Thank you, Olivia. Cole, same question.
Okay, I don't remember the question. Sorry.
Do you have any proactive thoughts or solutions to address the new housing affordability problem?
Actually, the problem is now with starter homes, the cost has got so high, they're about $350,000. So it takes pretty good salary to be able to make payments on that. The best solution is better, higher paying jobs. Because if you don't have a good job, it's pretty tough to buy a new home. Okay. So then your choices are to renovate one yourself or know somebody that can help you, or you got to have an apartment. Stutzman County Development and the city are working on some projects to get some developers in. I think that there's more than can be done or that can be done. I don't know really what can be done at the state level other than try to give out more money for those things, and not that we would be opposed to that. Depends a lot on Measure 4.
Thank you, Cole. Our next question. North Dakota's Legacy Fund presents a significant opportunity to invest in major projects across the state. How would you approach using Legacy Fund resources to support local economic development, including projects like Bison World? And Cole, we will start with you for this question.
Well, I'm a big proponent of Bison World. They have come forward with a plan. I think we should fund it. We have run it up the flagpole twice in the legislature, once in the 21 legislature, once in the 23. Didn't make it either time, but I have visited with other senators. I keep getting more of them on board. So, it would be nice if we could just use the legacy fund, but you need a governor that's behind it, number one. You've got to have everybody rolling in the same direction. So,
thank you, Cole. Olivia, same question.
Thank you. Again, when it comes to the Legacy Fund, I think that we forget that there are ways that's already been allocated for in-state investment and economic development, investment for return on investment for long-term returns to grow the rainy day portion of the Legacy Fund, and using the principle for economic development and infrastructure project are sort of two different buckets. I'll focus on the bucket of economic development and infrastructure. I agree that tourism needs to be a pillar of our economy that we continue to develop in our state and our region. A friend told me that most people, I'm the exception to this rule, most people will only move to a place if they've already visited it once or twice. And I'm really excited. We're right along the I-94 corridor. We need to get people to come here, take a picture with the buffalo, and then stay here overnight for a few days and spend money in our community and share our community with them. I do think when it comes to Bison World, we have to be careful not to have our blinders on and dig ourselves so far into a hole that we no longer can collaborate or hear new perspectives about the strengths and opportunities of that proposal. Other ideas I'm really excited about. So I love Cows & Co. How many of you have been there? Raise your hand. Yeah, gelato. I would love to see more things like that in our region, right? Cole talked about kind of locally grown talent, and I agree with that. Local folks who have a dream and want to stay here and root their family here deserve the economic opportunity to do that. So whether it's through kind of a traditional accelerator entrepreneurship type program or another new program we can start, I want to use those dollars to sort of create new wealth in new sectors of our economy while also developing our community. The last thing I'll say is that we've got a big opportunity for tech in our state. Just like when it comes to animal agriculture, we do have to be conscious of the energy use of those technical endeavors and make sure the community is looped in early and often in any major land use changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Our next question. Healthcare is a complex and important issue for many voters. What do you believe are the key healthcare concerns for our state, and how would you approach addressing those concerns? And Olivia, I will start with you for this question.
Thank you. I just learned about a term called maternity deserts, which essentially is how far someone has to access for maternal care in our state. A large part of that has to do with our wide open geography. Other parts of that has to do with how our state government allocates Medicaid dollars in those federal programs. And the third part has to do with restrictions imposed and overreached by the state government. I'm severely disappointed in Mr. Conley's vote on one of the most restrictive abortion bans in our country. No matter your personal opinions about abortion, most folks I talk to say, oh, I agree with it or I don't agree with it, but it's not my job to impose that on another person's healthcare decision. I struggle with this almost every day. You can ask my husband. My family does not live here. A lot of my friends from high school do not live here. I want to stay here, but I don't feel welcome here as a woman, given that extreme abortion ban. I have the privilege that I could drive to Minneapolis, God forbid I need care, but a lot of people do not. And it's really time we stop siloing social and economic issues. These social factors around restrictive healthcare bans, book bans, they affect the perception of our state. That breaks my heart because I've lived here 6 years. I know we have some of the most caring people on planet Earth right here in Jamestown. And I want to see that care better reflected in our legislatures and our leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Cole, same question.
One of the biggest portions of the budget in North Dakota is health and human services. And I think we do a pretty good job on that. We spend a lot of money on it. We have some really good healthcare facilities here in North Dakota. Jamestown is one of the better ones. If you need specialty care, well, then you go to Fargo or Bismarck. But we do have excellent healthcare people here. Human services, we've got, I'm on the Buffalo Bridges Social Service Board. They do an excellent job taking care of their clients. Very caring people there. Oh, that's fine.
Go ahead.
Oh,
That's
so
fine.
as far as the abortion bill, Senate Bill 2150, 42 voted for that. One of those 42 was Senator Tim Mathern, a Democrat, but he's pro-life. And I think the values in North Dakota here, and I think I reflect those values, are pro-life. Not everybody is, but most of us are. And as far as the book bill, that was to make pornographic materials less accessible to children. And I think that bill was, was 39 to pass that bill. So I don't apologize for those things.
Thank you, Cole. Our next question from our audience. Revenue generation for the state is always a topic of interest. What are your views on expanding the North Dakota lottery system, potentially including scratch-off tickets, as a way to retain revenue that currently goes to neighboring states? Cole, we will start with you for this question.
I am not a gambler. There are a lot of people that like to do it. A lot of people win some money doing it. I think most of them lose money doing it. I'm not in bed with the gambling lobby. If people want to gamble with their money, that's fine. But I see some people that somebody gambles away the grocery money. So I'm not much for gambling.
Okay. Thank you, Cole. Olivia, same question.
Thank you. Just like the topic of reproductive health care, I think most North Dakotans value freedom more than government overreach in terms of how we choose to spend our money and our time in our own healthcare decisions. I agree with Mr. Conley. I'm not a gambler. I had a friend who won $400 on a pull tab the other day at Spirits, and I was shocked. I won $20 at blackjack within 2 minutes of playing, and I stopped playing. That being said, whenever we think of these things that can bring revenue to our state, whether it's scratch-off tickets or marijuana or alcohol, at some point we do need to charge taxes to utilize and leverage that revenue. We need to match that leveraging of revenue with the appropriate guidelines and oversight so that we can maintain public safety. So I would be a leader who asks a lot of critical questions when a new proposal comes in. I would ask, how have other states done it? What have been the strengths? What have been the barriers? How are we going to adapt in 4 years if we say yes to something and it goes wrong? Our state legislature meets every other year. That means they have every other year to go and reassess some of the decisions they made before. But it also means there's time in between when we need to empower and trust the professionals in our state agencies, our healthcare providers, our human service providers, to make sure that if someone, for example, is on the verge of a gambling addiction, they have the behavioral health resources they need. I think sometimes when we talk about state funding, we go so quickly to blanket cuts across the board, and we forget you are cutting the opportunity and the resources for on-the-ground humans to help other humans. One example I heard is from human service providers at the Human Service Center, counselors, who said, because we're able to intervene earlier and we have certain resources to help people earlier, we're preventing them from getting so far that they have to go to the state hospital and use state resources there. So I'm for any creative uses of state revenue and increasing state revenue as long as it's matched with equal investment in the human service providers and on-the-ground implementers who can make sure it's done responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Our next question is from our audience. What are some things you would do to support immigrants and new Americans to our area and to the state? And Olivia, I will shoot it back to you for this question.
Thank you. Again, I have to speak very frankly that I think Jamestown is a wonderful place, and I also often still feel like an outsider here. And that's no one's fault. That's the reality of being a new person in a new place where there's existing social and cultural structures that we all have to navigate. But it has to be a two-way street between folks who have lived there their whole lives and new folks who are joining our community. I was really excited. The same Senator, Tim Mathern, who I disagree with his vote on the abortion ban, also introduced a new office within the Department of Commerce to support legal immigration and workforce issues in our state. I would be thrilled to collaborate with Senator Mathern on expanding some of those departmental offices at a state level, those services, those technical supports I also am really passionate about taking what I learned and sharing it with new people right away. So I've already shared with the Librarian Coalition here in town some of these Department of Commerce grants for small businesses. And I said, here's who you could contact in the Small Business Association Authority. I don't remember what the A stands for. Um, and so those are two things I would do. I would support further kind of structural resources to support new Americans and immigrants. And I would be a community member, a neighbor who takes what I learned and is eager to share it with others.
Thank you, Olivia. Cole, same question.
Thank you. We need to be welcoming to everyone. Immigrants do a lot of jobs that other people just aren't doing. The Ukrainians, for example, they were doing construction jobs, but having problems getting driver's license. And they needed driver's licenses to get jobs. So we passed a bill, I think it was in the 23 session, to make it easier for them to get driver's licenses and work permits. So, all people are valuable, and we need them all.
Thank you, Cole. I think we have time for one more question before we move on to closing statements. I wish I had thought of this question, but this comes from an audience member. Is there any topic you feel you have not had the chance to cover tonight? So kind of free range here, but I will start with Cole for this question. We'll bounce back to you.
Thank you. So the county commissioners got a question about animal ag, and I was kind of wishing I'd get that question. So in last session, Paul Thomas sponsored a bill and I co-sponsored it to enable more animal ag in North Dakota. And the start of that was a tour that I had with some senators and representatives out to the Spiritwood Energy Park. And we noticed that there were these huge piles of DDGs, which are animal feed, cattle feed. And so Senator Hogue and I decided, why don't we get a bill going to see if we can't use some of that locally, because 95% of that is shipped out of state. So I had the legislation written up, and then Representative Thomas had basically the exact same bill. So there wasn't sense in running two bills similar, so we just used his. And it was not without a lot of headwind that we got that done. Took a lot of work. I had to talk to a lot of people. There was a lot of behind the scenes things that happened, and we got it done. And that's why there are two dairies going up in the eastern part of the state. Would have been nice if they were here, but one's going to be at Hillsboro and one's going to be at down by Wapata. One of them is 25,000 cows, and the other one is 12,500. And I'm introducing a bill in the next session to see if we can get more animal ag processing plants. Thanks.
Thank you, Cole. Olivia, same question.
Thank you. In the same vein, I'm really interested long-term in regional food systems. I have a natural resource background and also a strong connection to community wherever I've lived. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to find more processing of things we grow here. I do think any development needs to still honor local control. I'm really disappointed that things like the Model Zoning Task Force and discussions on public education have been starting to happen behind closed doors or are not as accessible to the public as they should be in the modern age of 2024. Mr. Conley has called for transparency in the Legacy Fund, and I, of course, agree with that. I need to name that bill will not be effective unless paired with accountability structures and measures. And I would encourage Senator Conley, if reelected, to make sure he applies that value of transparency to all decision makings around land use and other resources. Regarding resilient food systems, so does anyone know what resilient means? Raise your hand. I was a teacher. So it's the capacity of a system to absorb and buffer change and bounce back. And we need that. We are going to keep facing uncertain weather events in our region that is heavily reliant on the agricultural community. Those folks, of course, need short-term support in terms of money, but they need long-term vision in terms of planning the different ways that we can use the animal products, the ag products, and other creative food things in our economy. As I mentioned before, I'm really excited about the crossover between regional food economies and tourism. These sort of local niche things that now we can have specialty cheese in our region and ship it across the country. We can have folks go and tour these smaller family farms. By the way, Cole Conley voted to repeal the corporate farming law. So while I admire his animal agriculture vision and expansion of regional food processing, I'm concerned with how he's been implementing it so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Each candidate will now have up to 2 minutes for a closing statement. And of course, our last question, why should citizens vote for you to serve as a District 12 state senator? And Cole, I will bounce it back to you to start us off.
Thank you. Well, first of all, let me say it's been an honor and a privilege to have served in the Senate for the last 4 years. It's extremely important to have an effective voice in Bismarck. There's lots of people there that they get up and they talk, and there's some eloquent speakers. But it all comes down to the vote in the end. Bismarck, Fargo, Grand Forks, Dickinson, Williston, and Minot have multiple senators. Jamestown has one. I work a lot with Senator Wazik, so between the two of us, we double the output. I also work with, I work with all the senators there, but, relationships mean everything. And I have good relationships with all the senators, Democrat and Republican. I also work closely with Mitch and Bernie. We work as a team. That way, they know what's going on in the Senate. I know what's going on in the House. A lot of work, like I said, goes on behind the scenes. You meet with your colleagues to discuss things. You meet with the majority leaders. You meet with lobbyists. It's extremely important to have a seat at the table where those decisions are getting talked about. Like I said, I was deeply involved in the animal ag bill, also with the next era plant out at Spiritwood, or the proposed fertilizer plant. There's a placard on the front of the desk where I sit in the Senate chamber that says Senator Conley, District 12. The most important part of that placard is the District 12. Every time I speak or vote, I am reminded that I am there to represent you, not me, because it is your seat. And I would be honored to serve as your senator for another 4 years.
Thank you, Cole. Olivia, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. I want to thank Senator Conley for his last 4 years of service, his sacrifice of time, and I know you care about this community as much as I do. So the question in front of you all here today, you all watching this recording, it's not about who cares about Jamestown and our region more. It's not about who's lived here more. It's who do you think will be a more effective leader? Who do you think will work harder to bring real results and resources here? And how has Senator Conley helped you in the last 4 years? I have no disillusion about what I could accomplish as one person. But my core values of empathy, collaboration, and integrity drive me to make sure the right folks are in the right room around the table to find creative, collaborative solutions. In just 6 years here, I have built a lot of really good relationships with folks here in Jamestown, working in a variety of disciplines. I've learned a lot from some of my friends who have very different jobs than me, and my mind has been changed once I've received new information. I really just want nothing more than to make sure we take care of the people in between. We're in between Fargo and Bismarck. I think our in-betweenness is a good thing. We're not too big, we're not too small. We still have undeveloped land that frankly should stay undeveloped for some regard, so we're that wide open space and exploration. But we also have to take care of the people in between their old home and their new home after they move here, the folks who are deciding whether they want to stay or leave. We have to take care of the family members who are making not enough to qualify for certain housing, but also not enough that they can afford groceries. The teachers and counselors navigating students with behavioral issues who clearly need additional support but aren't extreme enough for certain aid. These are hard problems, they're nuances. I'm ready to tackle them together with you, and I would ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Cole and Olivia, and thank you to our audience for submitting those questions. Cole and Olivia, you can step down, I guess. I feel like a judge up here saying that. At this time, I would like to invite Bernie Satrom and Mitch Osley up to join me. They are the candidates for the North Dakota District 12 House of Representatives electoral race, and each of them will be able to give a statement. They are running unopposed, but each candidate will have 8 minutes to address our audience here today. And Bernie, since you were so quick to the draw to jump up here, I will start with you and make sure you turn your microphone on, please.
Good evening. Good to see you. My name is Bernie Satrom. I'm honored to have served you in the North Dakota House of Representatives for the last 8 years. I'm married to Diane. We have 4 sons, very proud of all of them. 9 grandchildren, which is God's reward for not strangling my sons when they were teenagers. That's supposed to be funny, but it's not that funny. You know, it's been said that there's no limit to what you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit. And I couldn't help but I just wanted to express some of my appreciation for the great opportunity to serve you and the good things that we've been able to accomplish. One of the things that last session, I was the legislator that had the most bills submitted. Actually, it showed me that I tied, but actually there was some that they forgot to count. So I got the most. And quite realistically, I would not have been able to do it without my team, my partners, which is Mitch Osley and Cole Conley. One of the things that I'll just mention that we have been working on actually since they came 2 sessions ago was transparency and how we're planning for our future. One of the big emphasis I'm concerned about is how can we keep North Dakota in a good place so that our children and grandchildren don't have to go somewhere else for opportunities when they grow up. And one of the things that I mentioned about 4 years ago is that we had some funds that were invested in some pretty crazy places. For example, Russian government bonds and Chinese companies that were, like, for example, we were using taking money from our oil companies, and we're actually using it. We had $800,000 invested in a Chinese oil refinery that was refining Iranian oil. We had money in Tencent, which is a company that was helping the Chinese Communist Party to basically hunt down the Uyghur people. We have some other things too that are just embarrassing. And there was a lot of headwind when you start talking. People said, you know, you don't know anything because this is rocket science. And we have this thing called this, a prudent investor rule we have to adhere to. And I was talking with somebody the other day and they said, you know, there's nothing prudent about it. Anybody with half sense knows that it's the wrong thing to do. So one of the passions, I just want to say there was a lot of headwind. But you know who was at my back? Cole Conley, Mitch Osley. They got a lot of pressure too, but we stood our ground. And after 4 years, it's coming to the light. and we're going to fix that. We need to quit investing in other people's success and other people's futures. We need to start succeeding, and we need to start investing on our own. We need to, anyway, you'll be hearing more about that probably in the paper coming up shortly. The other thing, too, that we did is we had this Ag Development Diversification Bill. This was a bill that the three of us did together. And the objective is to take, rather than sending out calves and the DDD, the corn that we're sending out, how about we send out T-bones, right? Stuff like that. So anyway, we've been working really hard to do that, and it's exciting because we found out, for example, during COVID, we found out that we didn't have the meat processing that we really needed in the state. And so the cool thing was that because of it, there was about 10 different meat processing plants that were able to expand in the state. I'm proud that these guys we worked together as a team for a task force to prevent sexual abuse of children. This is started 8 years ago, and this is something that the guys have been helping work with. Also, anyway, those are just a couple that I can think of. You know, one of the interesting thing is that there's lots of districts around the country and around the state, I should say, that there might be two Republicans and a Democrat, or a Democrat and a Republican, you know, whatever mixture. Or sometimes there's three Republicans, but they don't get along with each other. They're not a team. The amazing thing about Mitch Osley and Cole Conley and I is that we're friends and we're a team. We're not all alike. We have different views. The main objective is, how can we serve District 12? And I'm excited to say I think we're doing some good things. It's been something was said earlier. You know, loud voices get ignored. When people are willing to listen, they get respect. And that's something I think that that's something that our team strives to do, is to respect, to listen, and to respect others. Respect you. You are our boss. Also respect the institution. Respect the people who work in the administration. The people in the offices. Respect them. Whenever I see a social worker or somebody I meet whenever I see somebody that works at the state hospital, I say thank you. Human Services, I say thank you. Police Department, I say thank you, because they're the people that make this work. Anyway, I appreciate you all being here. And somebody said, why? I was knocking on doors recently. Somebody said, why are you knocking on doors? You're not even you don't even have a challenger. And I said, because we're a team. Why do we have all those signs? Because we're a team. And we don't take your vote for granted. We believe it's a sacred trust. It's a sacred act. And serving you is a sacred duty. Thank you again for the opportunity to serve you.
Thank you, Bernie. Mitch Osley?
Okay. Thank you again for hosting this, and for all those in attendance here. For some of you who, is this mic on okay? Get a little closer.
You're good.
Okay. For those of you who don't know me personally, I've been around in Jamestown. I've lived here for over 30 years. And I have 3 adult children who graduated from Jamestown High School. And as soon as I moved, and they don't, unfortunately, they don't live in North Dakota anymore, a little too far away. But when I first moved here, within the first couple of years, I started getting involved in the community, whether it was on local church boards or booster clubs at the school. Did my 4 years of service with the local school board and other community events around town. So that's a little of my resume. And with the some of the questions that were given us ahead of time, I'll focus on a few of those. Some of the priorities that we'll be looking forth this coming session. We've got a lot of things that we've been working on, and a lot of things we need to focus on. Bernie had mentioned transparency and legacy fund earnings or investments. That's something that we're working on. We've been working on it for a long time. We've got about an $11 billion balance on that right now. And there's about $3 billion that we don't know where the dollars are invested as far as the individual companies. So that's a concern. And we're going to hopefully get more answers for the people in North Dakota on that. Substance abuse, it's been talked about a little bit. That's a challenge all across the state. We got to do better with that. And there's a lot of moving parts to that, whether it's more counselors, those kinds of things. Workforce, childcare, housing, property tax, whether Measure 4 passes or does not pass, there will be legislation put forth to do something with property tax. The current system may not be perfect for people, but it is. It's been working for most people. The thing with property tax that I, look at, these are primarily for local services that we're receiving: city, county, park and rec, and public schools. I think we need to ask. A lot of people have been asking the wrong question. Who should be paying for those services that we are receiving locally? Should we as citizens of Jamestown and District 12 and the state of North Dakota pay for them, or pass it on to somebody else? I personally think we should be paying for them locally. With childcare, we passed legislation last session, a little over $60 million into childcare. We haven't realized a lot of the positive things from that yet. City of Jamestown, over $1 million is already allocated for childcare facilities in town from that legislation. We're not going to see results of that yet. It takes some time. Housing. I look at this as it's more of a local issue. The state really is here to support the counties and the cities. And if Measure 4 passes, there will be less local control, guaranteed. Whoever is in control of the purse strings usually makes the rules. That's just the way it is. I believe the federal government should be here to support the states. States should be here to support the cities and the counties and the townships. And this just ends up making that go in reverse. With some of the housing issues, the state has been doing some positive things, I believe, through the Bank of North Dakota. First-time home buyers, Rural Development Association, they've done some good interest rate buy downs for not only first-time home buyers, but also for businesses. And I think that's important. And I'll continue to support those things. Measure number 4 has been getting the most publicity. I know there are still a lot of citizens out here across the state that don't know that there are 5 total measures on the bill, on the ballot. We got to talk about them. We got to do a better job of talking to our neighbors, service clubs, those kinds of things. It's real important. There's 3 that really immediately impact citizens of North Dakota, in my opinion. Measure 4 is the obvious one. Measure 5, the recreational marijuana one, is another. Measure 2, dealing with making it just a little bit more difficult to pass a constitutional amendment. I personally feel that it should be more difficult to change your constitution than pass law. And in North Dakota, it's almost the opposite. So really all Measure 2 does just makes it just a little more difficult, not impossible. We just have to, for the most part, that measure, we got to vote on it twice. And that gives people an opportunity to maybe vet it just a little more, study it a little more. And I think that's a good thing. So I'm going to vote yes on that one. So that's really all I have on that. Again, I didn't see anybody raise a card or anything. Tom's hollering at me. So I will wrap up. And again, it really has been an honor and a privilege to serve District 12 as your representative the last 4 years. And I look forward to another 4 years. We've done some good work, but it's not finished. And I want to continue to work with my team to get some of these things accomplished. We have supported in District 12 additional funding for our local law enforcement, fire department, military benefits, grants to the Arts Center, childcare, education, projects at Spiritwood Energy Park. These are all things that we are working on for District 12. And we want to just build on those accomplishments. So we thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. Thank you to all of our candidates that were here tonight and to our audience. I would like to thank those who helped host this forum with the Jamestown Area Chamber of Commerce. This evening's forum will be rebroadcast with CSI News, and the recording will be available on the Chamber social media. Thank you to Dakota Central and CSI News for airing this forum. Lastly, I want to remind you that this year's election is being held on November 5th. You must be a U.S. citizen, be at least 18 years of age, a legal North Dakota resident, and a resident in the precinct for at least 30 days preceding the election to vote. Please provide an acceptable form of ID at the voting site. All Stutsman County residents are allowed to vote at the Jamestown Civic Center on November 5th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Thank you again for tuning in and have a great evening.